On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Songs About Fucking by Big Black. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal, and we like to talk about it. And today, we're going to be talking about a 1987 album released by Big Black, which is a punk band. They have been called post-hardcore. They've been called post-punk, perhaps hardcore punk, noise rock.
Noise rock, yeah.
There's many different things. Definitely a punk rock ethos.
They only had the two albums, really.
Yes, they only had two albums, couple of EPs, some live albums. This is their second and final studio album.
Yep.
It actually came out after they had broken up as a band, and it's called Songs About Fucking. And you know what? This album is not necessarily what I thought it was when you said we were going to listen to it last week. I thought it was going to be more in the vein of like a super bizarre experimental sort of like a more crass version of something that the Residents would do almost. I don't know why.
It is not.
It's not that. No, it's I mean, sonically, it's hard to call it like a classic punk rock album, but in the sense that like everything about the band is so fucking punk, like
their entire attitude toward recording, attitude toward life, toward everything, toward people,
toward everything is just so incredibly punk. And this was, I also like, I know who Steve Albini is,
sure,
but I had no idea, and I knew like he was a musician and everything like that, but I had no idea this is what he started out doing.
Yeah.
And they were the sort of band whose subject matter in their lyrics was so crass and so like willfully offensive. That it's like we'll talk more about this later, but it's the sort of thing like that you could kind of you could only kind of get away with in the 80s, like
right now no one would bat an eye.
Yeah, well no I think it's I don't know, I have some feelings about it in the sense that like they're like the subject matter is. It's that thing I think that happened with a lot of like, you know, underground punk bands in the 80s, which is the choice of words and the subject matter and the like the way they would go about talking about the subject matter and a willingness to use slurs and that sort of thing.
Well, yeah,
that's the sort of thing that you would not do today.
Sure.
But that you could, even if you were someone who was, you know, on the more progressive side of things in the 80s, like. I don't know. I can't quite articulate the point that I'm trying to make, but it's the sort of thing that you couldn't do today, and you also wouldn't do today.
Right.
Like people who are even of the same mindset and same disposition wouldn't choose to do those sorts of things. And it also has those choices back then were like haven't sat well with some people as time has gone on. Like you didn't need to do that. Even fucking Steve Albini has said about some of their work, like, yeah, I regret doing that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't give a shit. Like, that's not to say that these guys, you know, these people were bad guys or anything like that. But
but they were doing it to provoke. Is what they were doing. They weren't trying to put anybody down. They were trying to provoke.
But it's the sort of thing where people, I don't think that many people at the time even understood that. And people, I think if you just put like the list of lyrics from this band in front of them today, people definitely wouldn't get it if they don't know who these people are.
Sure.
Like,
if you didn't know what they were trying to do,
it's a risk that you take with satire, where when you lean into it like too hard, people don't know that it's satire. And sometimes like people are like, oh, the best satire is the stuff where you don't know it's satire. And I'm like, that's not true. That can be really fucking dangerous, though. Right. Because then you can get a whole bunch of people who don't know who you really are, who like you for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know.
Like, especially when you take it when you take your satire too far, and you actually, and then you can't tell people you're actually doing it, and then you actually have to take the oath of office.
You can't, like, if you revealed it was a joke.
Yeah.
Then there would be a civil war.
Exactly.
If only that were true. If only that were the case. That Trump's presidency was one big fucking... That actually Donald Trump died in the 80s and was replaced by Andy Kaufman.
Who is still alive.
Yes.
Because Andy Kaufman died in the 80s. But I mean...
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Andy Kaufman faked his death. Donald Trump actually died. And Andy Kaufman faked his death to replace Donald Trump.
He got
extensive surgery and has been pretending to be Donald Trump this whole time. And it will be revealed to be Andy Kaufman's greatest joke yet. If only. But anyway, we'll talk more about Big Black.
Sure.
And songs about fucking. I can't, like, the title in combination with the band name just makes me like, I feel like I don't need to articulate the thought that immediately leaps into my brain. Which I assumed was like where the band name came from. I assumed that they were being that crass. Like, no, they were just talking about just like a big black thing, a monster. It's this, but again, even saying that, it sounds like an innuendo. It sounds like an innuendo.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk more about the band, about the album later on. First, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
That's good.
My dude, I'm living large. What am I doing?
You're living large?
Oh, I went to Hustfest.
You went to the Hustfest, the largest Scandinavian festival in North America.
Yes. It was pretty fun.
That's good.
I get in for free, and it still cost me $100.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's going to a festival of any kind. It'll cost you. It'll cost you.
Yeah, I had a potato club.
Ah, yes.
Love me the club. You ever had a club?
The club.
The club is delicious.
I don't think I actually have had a club.
Never had a club?
I don't think so.
You know what it is, though, right?
I believe so. Describe it to me.
Okay, it's just one big fucking potato dumpling.
Okay.
And they drown it in melted butter and ham.
That sounds pretty good.
You're right. It's very. By the time you get to the bottom of it, you feel like, hey, did I swallow a cinder block? That's how you feel by the end of it. It was delicious, but there's like regret.
There's a mass.
There's a mass now in the middle of you
that has collected there.
That only Rumagrut can soothe.
Some Rumagrut. Maybe get some lefse later on.
Oh, you got some lefse with some.
And
butter.
if you want to throw up, why not have a little bit of everyone's favorite Scandinavian food, lutefisk.
Lutefisk. Yeah. Oh, man. I told Maximus, my youngest child who I went there with, I said, hey, you've never had lutefisk. You should try it. And he's like, no, I'm not. No, thanks.
I know what it is. I'm not going to have it. See, I was never made to eat, because my family's predominantly German. Because most of my family's from central and southern North Dakota. So we were predominantly German, so there wasn't a ton of Scandinavian food. Like, I have a bit of Norwegian ancestry, but
but Borner is a very German name.
Yeah, so there was not a lot, and even when it comes to like, there wasn't really much like ethnically German food other than
Fleischkegel.
Like Fleischkegel we would have, and like no,
never.
I think. Is Nefla soup German? Is Nefla German?
I think Nefla is German. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom apparently makes really good Nefla soup. I personally don't care for any Nefla soup.
Really? You don't like Nefla? You ever had it at like Kroll's?
No, I haven't.
Kroll's is really good. It's one of the best soups.
I'm a bad North Dakotan German. But anyway, everyone in my family hates sauerkraut as well. So there was never sauerkraut growing up.
Man, so I'll have me a kielbasa with sauerkraut on it and mustard.
We have no culture. Is what we have no culture. Not even the white people culture. No. But yeah, so I didn't grow up with a lot of Scandinavian food, but to the degree that like it was always like lutefisk was always a punchline in my family. I think my dad likes lutefisk.
Yeah.
But he's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe my oldest sister likes sauerkraut. I can't remember.
I still think it's funny. Lutefisk as a food is hilarious. If we don't do this with the fish, we're gonna starve because there's a famine going on.
The fish is going to go bad.
Yeah, and
it's winter. We can't get out on the Baltic Sea to get more of the fish.
So we have to do this to it. Even though it's frozen, if we could just put the fish in a bank of snow, we'd be fine. We're still gonna do this to it so that it doesn't get. So wild animals won't eat it, or living things won't eat it.
We want to make it unappealing.
We want to make it completely unappealing, and then fast forward, how many hundreds of years later, somebody from North Dakota calls a chef in Norway and says, "Hey, will you come over here? We want you to cook something for us." Oh, what? There are many great meals that I can make as a chef here in Norway. I would love to come and bring some of our dishes. Yeah, can you make lutefisk?
Why the fuck would I do that?
Are you out of your fucking mind?
That's disgusting. Are you sure you're not from Iceland? The way you like to fucking torture yourself with disgusting fish meat?
Is there a famine in North Dakota right now?
It's one of those things that a lot of poor settlers from Scandinavia came to the United States and eventually ended up in North Dakota, and they were from poor parts of their country. They were impoverished. Mm-hmm. That's why they came to the U.S. in the first place. And so they brought with them the peasant food that they had where they were from.
Exactly.
And that's what they carried forward through the generations. Whereas in the place that they left, they're like, we don't need to keep eating that anymore. We're now, we're culturally and economically on the rise.
Yeah. I remember at one point, and of course you don't remember Late Night with David Letterman.
No, I don't.
You don't. Well, his.
Well, I mean, it was like Late Night was with David Letterman was still on for a while when I was of an age to be watching it.
Sure.
I just wasn't a Letterman person.
Sure. I was. I loved David Letterman. From like the first time the show was on, I loved it, and I was like 8.
Okay.
But anyway, his stage manager was a guy named Biff Henderson.
Okay.
And he was this older gentleman. And at one point, he decides for a stunt, he's going to send Biff across America. Okay. And he's going to go to all the places and see all the stuff. And eventually, he's driving through this blizzard on this flat, barren nothing. I-94 through North Dakota, and he stops at this kindly old woman's home, and he's going to stay there. She has like a bed and breakfast, and she's, I'm going to feed you some of the local food. And he says, "Oh, thank you very much." Mm-hmm. And she makes him lutefisk, and he takes the forkful, puts it in his mouth, and goes, "Thank you very much." And then the voiceover is, "It was the most disgusting thing I've ever put in my mouth."
Oh God. Yeah, it's too bad he wasn't, somewhere else in North Dakota with some grandma who could have served him Nefla and Fleischkekle.
Yeah.
Both of those are very enjoyable.
Those are very, get some gravy, some butter.
You got fried carbs, you've got meat, and
also fried.
Also, because the meat
and breaded.
The meat goes in, because it's in with the carbs as they're getting fried.
Right.
Like, it's hard to go wrong with that.
And then potato dumplings.
And some more meat.
And for me, you throw some sauerkraut on the plate and we got a deal.
Sure.
But not for you, but for me.
I mean, I acknowledge that, like, I for some reason, like, sauerkraut on its own, I despise the smell of it. But for some reason, when it's together with the things you would traditionally eat sauerkraut with.
So you could eat it on Polish sausage. So if you have a brat on the off the grill, you could put
it somehow the smells combine to make it more it becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Right.
Considering, especially to me, that the fact that sauerkraut is there at all would be a negative. In fact, it would subtract from the sum.
But in this case, it only adds.
The combination, it's a force multiplier.
Sure.
I don't know how or why.
Like the chili sauce from Wendy's.
Sure.
Have you ever had the chili sauce from Wendy's?
I don't think so.
I've had it on its own because I've done that with nearly all packeted condiments I've ever encountered. So I'll get at least one, tear it open, and
just slurp that.
Just suck it down, just enjoy it. So I've done that with the chili sauce at Wendy's, and it is awful.
It's bad.
It tastes like there's a chemical war going on in your mouth.
Because there is.
But you put that shit in their chili, and it is magic.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I had some more thoughts about food, I think, but I don't remember, what they were necessarily. But yeah, I like whenever I think of lutefisk, I also think of hakarl, which I'm surprised that is there a place at the Hustfest you can get hakarl, because there is an Icelandic, element to representation.
I feel like
at the Hustfest.
I feel like hakarl is a rare food because you have to get it from Greenland sharks.
Yeah,
and Greenland sharks are not, the most abundant thing.
It's probably not legal to import into the United States. Not even because it's a foreign food product and that maybe there's some issues with that. No, there's probably some ban on fucking chemical weapons. Right. That prevents hakarl from being imported into the U.S.
Something in the Geneva Convention.
Yeah. You can't import this. Well, because I don't know if there's anything that's within U.S. fishing waters. If there's anywhere where you can really where someone could even acquire Greenland shark. Because also in U.S. markets, there's no market for that meat in the U.S. To make homegrown hakarl.
There's not enough people that would come within 10 feet of it.
Yeah. Like probably, in Canada, there's probably some places where their fishing rights or whatever extend to some place where you can get Greenland shark, but maybe not in the U.S. waters.
On a similar note, my youngest son, speaking of my youngest son, we were driving quietly in a car. We had the music on through the radio, and he says to me just out of the blue, "Hey, did you know that if you took a bite out of a polar bear's liver, you would die from potassium poisoning?"
I didn't know that.
No.
That's very interesting. I did not know that. Well, because they only eat meat, right?
Sure. But I think they just have to store, because they don't hardly eate anything else. They got to store that in their liver.
Yeah. Because it's like one of those things of their whole digestive system. I have to imagine there's a lot of parts of a polar bear that are probably less than appetizing.
Yeah, you never hear about anybody eating polar bear.
Yeah, I'm sure that has happened.
Sure.
It is an animal that exists in a place where people also live, so I'm sure that they have been eaten. But also, they're not exactly easy to kill.
No.
So at least, without a large firearm. But in any case, predators in general are not particularly good eating. Most of the things that humans like to eat plants, and they have larger amounts of fat. I guess you want a bear that's right about to hibernate. That's what you want.
Sure.
Where they got lots of fat. You don't want a bear that's just come out of hibernation. They're fucking skinny and scraggly.
Angry.
They're just pissed off.
They need their coffee.
I don't know. I don't think bears come out of hibernation. Bears come out of hibernation like they just went on a 4-month bender. They're fucking stiff and they can barely walk for a week.
Barely stand in the shower.
Yeah. They put on some Lionel Richie.
Yeah.
And they're just thinking about life.
Exactly. Just leaning up against the shower wall there going, what am I doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah. Did you see the video of the bear in Mexico in a park? The family was just sitting there, having a lunch, and suddenly a black bear decides he wants to eat their lunch. And so
I think I've seen a clip.
And so the mother is holding the one child has Down syndrome, and he has a huge fear of animals. Apparently.
Okay.
So all she was doing is just putting her hand over his eyes and just holding him to her chest, and the other child just sitting there just looking straight forward. No one's making eye contact. No one's moving subtly. Just the bear is eating their food, and they're like, don't.
I mean, yeah. That's probably one, like, in the absence of, because like they usually say with black bears, the thing to do is to fucking yell and scream at them and make yourself look big. But I feel like in that situation, like trying to keep everyone calm, contained, just like the bear, there's food right there. That's what the bear wants. Let's just fucking chill and relax. Let the bear get it.
We'll
and then
eat
it will
later.
go away.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the smart thing to do.
And it was, because the bear's like, and then it left.
Yeah. That would be terrifying. That would be really scary and awful.
And the bear was eating Mexican food. The bears can you be going away? It's like bears like, oh, what's that smell? Oh, that came out of me. Jesus.
Bears never had so many beans in his life.
Oof, yeah. Oh, that was spicy. Wow.
Oh, what was in that?
That was really good, but
I don't feel right.
a whole lot of nuts and berries in there. Jesus. Is that masa?
Yeah. Bears are scary.
They are. Well, they're bears.
Like bears are scary, but also they're cute. And that that bothers me.
Do not pet a bear. If you're listening to this right now, don't pet a bear.
Or Werner Herzog will make a documentary about you.
And say you're a very stupid person. Yeah. I like the fact that the words brown bear both mean bear and brown.
Yeah. It's a double.
Yeah, it's a double
meaning. Yeah, I just wish I wish bears were friendlier and nicer. Like I wish I wish
I feel like they would go extinct.
Maybe. Well, the reason why is because they are so cute and they're big and they're fluffy. And I would love to be able to cuddle a bear and hug a bear.
Sure. Maybe make a miniature bear.
Maybe make a small little bear.
As Paul F. Tompkins once suggested.
Don't remember that.
You know, you can get miniature animals. What if my friends and I, and no, we weren't high, but we were thinking, what if you just made a miniature bear that you could have as a pet in your home?
And you could teach them to do tricks. And you could get them a little collar. And you could feed them kibble. And that's a dog.
That's a dog.
That's a dog. I guess sort of the thing about bears though, and I guess also the reason why they are not domesticated animals is because bears are not social animals.
They're not. There's no bear packs.
Exactly. The vast majority of animals that we have domesticated are gregarious and social animals.
Yep. And that's how we were able to do like the aurochs and the ancient horse and dogs and cats.
Cats are semi-gregarious.
Yeah, I guess that was a different way.
Cats are kind of a weird case in the sense that like cats will congregate together and like hang out to just like lounge and sleep, but then they will like when they're hungry they will separate. They go and hunt on their own, but they will like gather together and hang out with each other.
And I think the way they were domesticated was the fact that they were just so damn useful because your major problems as a person living hundreds of years ago were the rats.
Yeah. The rats are they're spreading disease. They're eating your fucking food. All kind of, you want to get rid of them, have some kitties around.
Exactly. You don't have any rats here, do you?
I don't have any rats here in this apartment.
Or spiders or
there are little spiders sometimes.
But
I highly doubt that this particular cat that we are referencing has ever eaten a mouse
or a spider
she's probably eaten a spider. I think I've seen her eat bugs, but generally there's not a lot of bugs in this apartment, other than fucking fruit flies, that come up out of the fucking
sink or whatever.
Yeah, I think they come out of the sink. I don't know.
Well, I think they just nest in the sink. That's just a great place for them to. It's dark and moist.
Yeah, I hate them. I hate them. I just turn into Anakin Skywalker whenever you talk about fruit flies. I killed them. Not just the fruit flies, but the regular flies.
And the children.
Horse flies. And the children, too. Whoa, that was a big leap.
I'm just imagining your fly strip, how weird that would look. All the different flies. There's a baby.
Oh, God, no.
How'd that get up there?
No.
Are those pests?
No.
No.
Yeah, let's talk about songs about fucking.
Okay.
So Songs About Fucking, as we had mentioned, is the second full-length and final studio album by the band Big Black, which was the first big project for Steve Albini, who most people, if you are familiar with music at all, you've probably listened to something that Steve Albini has recorded and produced. But
like the final Nirvana album.
Yes.
Yeah.
But maybe not his music himself, but you've definitely heard that something that he has produced. He has produced for bands such as Nirvana, Pixies, Godspeed You
Surfer
Black
Rosa.
Emperor.
Yeah.
Let's see some other ones here that are recognizable: Jawbreaker, Neurosis, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant,
Right.
Fred Schneider, Cheap
From the
Trick.
B-52s. Yep.
Let's see. There's the list goes on and on and on, really. He's been a very prolific recording engineer and producer, and is kind of known for his disdain for sort of the established music industry in general. He is not someone who tends to get along with record companies very well, but he's a dang good producer. He also, interestingly enough, apparently did not like Nirvana before they went and recorded with him.
Really?
He apparently thought they were like, he was very dismissive of them. On Wikipedia, in quotations, is REM with a fuzz box, is what he described them as. And he also said they, quote, an unremarkable version of the Seattle sound. And he said that he accepted the job to produce In Utero because he felt sorry for them.
Gee.
But then he produced it and he was proud of it. The band, apparently the band didn't like it at first, and then it grew on them. The record label didn't really like it. They asked for some revisions where they thought the vocals were too low in the mix, and Steve Albini was like, no, this is
this is what you get.
This is what you get. So they had some other people go and change that, and predictably Steve Albini was not a fan that they messed with his mix. But yeah, he is kind of known as a bit of an iconoclast is not the right word necessarily. That is something that I would maybe use to describe just Big Black in general, is somewhat iconoclastic. Incendiary might be a way of describing it. Again, just the spirit of like really underground punk in the late 70s and the 80s, of just like so fucking like so cynical and so just acidic and kind of toxic in nature a little bit.
I like that they decided to do a cover song on here, and they covered a Kraftwerk song.
Is it Kraftwerk? I thought it was yeah, okay, yeah, that's true. It is. There is also it's on the CD. There's a cover of a Cheap Trick song on the CD as well.
Is there?
Yes. So the Kraftwerk is the model.
Yeah.
And then there's
I don't think that was on the CD I bought.
There's at least on Wikipedia it says the compact disc of Songs About Fucking added the other side of that single, a cover of Cheap Trick's He's a Whore. So I don't know. I don't
think that was on my version.
It was not on the version that I listened to. But I also had to listen to this on Bandcamp, instead of on Spotify, which is what I usually use, because Big Black has no presence whatsoever on Spotify, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest when it comes to Steve Albini's reputation. They have no presence on Spotify, and which is a little shocking, at least in the sense that, like, because I had never, like, obviously I knew who Steve Albini was. I'd never heard of Big Black necessarily, because I think I also like I have a big blind spot for punk in general.
Sure.
As far as like what I know about punk and the history of it and like big bands and big names, like Big Black was not a small presence for punk in the 80s. They were not the little guy necessarily. They became very popular and were pretty highly influential and well regarded by the time they broke up. They became, by the mid 80s at least, they'd become a pretty big thing for punk in the 1980s.
And then after this band, their drummer went on to do big things.
Yes. So one of the more famous elements about the way that they set up their band is that they used a drum machine. They did not have a drummer. Steve Albini apparently was captivated by the fact, like, the sounds that you could make with a drum machine, the pace that you could keep up. And
he thought a live drummer sounded too drummy. Yeah,
he wanted it to sound a little different, I guess. Yeah. And also that it ended up saving them money and time and space, because drums are probably the biggest. They are the biggest, most complicated thing to transport around.
They are.
So when they started touring, the three of them, because they were they were a three-piece throughout their history. The three of them could just travel around in a regular car. They didn't need to buy a van. Right. They could just load all their stuff up into a car and do their tour that way, and save quite a lot of money.
And here's the most insidious thing about that is that of all the horrible things you can say about Steve Albini, he would often program the drum machine to hit on the 1 and 3.
Yeah, I did. I read about that. Like because that's not the way that drummers in Western music generally accent.
Right.
The beats in a song, and it's it's one of those things that really makes their music kind of fucking weird, and like there's something kind of almost enraging about it. Like there's an element to it. Like every single part of this comes together. I don't think this is necessarily unpleasant to listen to. This is not Obscura by Gorguts. This is not so willfully dissonant or atonal that it's like melts your brain. But so many of the elements, like the really clanky guitar sound, kind of just very classic sort of punk sounding vocals. All of it comes together for like a really abrasive package. Not like, again, brain meltingly dissonant or anything like that, but like so many of the sonic choices that they make kind of complement each other and end up becoming this sort of wall of unpleasantness in a certain sense. There's I don't know, what's your experience with Big Black?
I actually didn't learn about this until I got a special device in my home that you plugged it into the wall, you could connect to other devices that were similar.
Oh wow!
It was kind of a web where you learned about things.
Wow!
And
how big is it?
It's worldwide.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then I learned about this, and I'm like, oh, I know who Steve Albini is.
Yeah.
And so I went down and I ordered this CD from Budget Music and Video.
Nice.
I'm like, I want to hear this. I was in my my late 20s, so this album had been out for over a decade at the time. And and so I got it and listened to it and went, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Exactly what you said. And I'm like, I really dig this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about this that I feel like it kind of reminded me of like the the sort of stuff that like the guys from Converge and Dillinger Escape Plan like must have grown up listening to,
Right.
In one way or another. Like I can see so many of the different paths going out from this album that like people who listen to it would eventually take musically. Like this Big Black in general is kind of credited with being sort of a prototypical example of like industrial music through the use of like the drum machine and sort of their guitar sound. Like they would use metal guitar picks.
Right.
And
right. And they did a lot of stuff that was more not necessarily guitar playing, just guitar sound making.
Yeah. The sort of thing that like when if you would see an industrial band doing that, you wouldn't necessarily bat an eye at it. But for the time, it was pretty out there. And kind of furthering some of the ethos of punk at the time in the ways that like the music wasn't going that much further, but the ideas of it were kind of going further. Like you get to the end of the 80s and punk as it was had more or less sort of died out, and people were kind of moving on to other things and trying different things.
Right.
And this was one of those. And then you get into like the 90s and you end up with bands like Converge that are starting to incorporate elements of metal and starting to reincorporate noise and that sort of thing. Like Jane Doe is an extremely noisy album.
Yes, it is.
Like I could just hear bits and pieces of that as I was listening to this, of just like that was on my mind of like where this would go, and where things would go from here. Obviously Big Black didn't go anywhere else from here because they had already broken up by the time it came out. Right. They decided to call it quits. Things were apparently, from what I was reading, getting a little too big for them. It was just like, it was getting to be too much work. And they decided to instead just call it quits eventually. Yep. Because they were from the Chicago area, and they couldn't perform in Chicago because eventually, like, the only venue that played rock bands that was big enough for them, they got banned from because they played a show there, and then afterwards Steve talked shit about it. And so they were banned from every venue in Chicago, apparently. Like they didn't make many friends, as it would seem. But yeah, what's
also there was an alcohol problem.
Yes,
he was the bass player.
I believe so. From what I recall,
and Steve's straight edge.
Yes,
because he doesn't want a moment of uninterrupted, freely conscious Steve.
He doesn't want his misery to be interrupted by anything,
and by association, everyone else's misery.
Exactly. It was Dave Riley, I believe, who had been drinking. That by the time this album was made, the band consisted of Steve Albini, Santiago Durango, and Dave Riley, the three of them eventually decided to call it quits. Like Dave Riley never got fired. I think the band kind of broke up before it really sort of became a massive problem. And when it came to breaking up, Steve said, quote, "I am now quite happy to be breaking up. Things getting much too big and uncontrollable. All along, we wanted to keep our hands on everything, so nothing happened that we didn't want to. With international and multi-format / multi-territorial shit, that's proving elusive. I prefer to cut it off rather than have to turn into another gross rock spectacle." Incredibly punk.
That is a very punk rock thing to say.
Incredibly punk. And like, to their credit, when it comes to like wanting to keep their hands on everything, that's what they had been doing.
They paid for their own albums.
They did every single thing themselves.
Purely basically. DIY. Yeah.
With the exception of some of the production and recording, they hadn't done themselves. Like half of this was, Steve maybe handled some of it, but it wasn't necessarily like because they recorded part of this in London, I think. So I don't know at what point in their career trajectory Steve Albini started really getting into like music production and engineering. I don't know. I don't know when that happened, but do you think this album slaps?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it slaps in the rude way.
Yes, I think rude is maybe the best way to put this album. Like, regardless of any of the like potentially controversial takes one might have about the lyrical content throughout their entire career.
Yes,
like they're not bad dudes, and like. Steve Albini throughout his entire career has been seemingly like beset many times by like accusations that he's racist or homophobic or misogynist or something like that. I think it's honestly just because he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, I think he's just a general asshole.
It seems like he's politically a decent guy. He just apparently has a personality in general that people don't like. And so they just assume that he must be a chauvinist. It's like, no, he's just kind of an ass. Like he doesn't need to be all those other things. He's just a bit of a dick. Or at least that's the vibe that seems to permeate from anything you read about his personality.
Right.
But regardless of that, rude, I think is probably the best way to describe the content of their music.
Yeah.
Any other controversial takes notwithstanding, it is certainly rude.
It's definitely rude.
And that's the point. It's supposed to be rude. It's supposed to be provoking. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be a little bit offended by it. And through being offended by it, you can examine why you're offended and what there is that you've heard that you should be offended about. Like why that is. But that's the sort of thing that doesn't happen a lot these days.
I feel like people are unironically like this.
Yes.
Now, I mean, people are they're rude, but not to make you think, but they're rude just because they're dicks.
Just because they're assholes.
Yeah.
Like it's the sort of parody and the sort of humor that just doesn't exist a lot anymore, because the people who are just genuinely that way are perhaps much louder than they used to be.
Yeah. Oh, way louder. Yeah.
So it almost feels pointless to parody them when you can just point at them and be like, why would I joke about being that way? You can just watch television and see a real life person talk like that out in the open. So the parody isn't funny anymore.
Right.
But back in the day, it was not quite so. People didn't say the quiet part loud back in the day.
Right. Now they do.
Now they do.
Very loud.
What's your but first of all, the score collectively that I was able to put together through, because there were a lot of there was a lot of like published publications that had reviews on this to collect from the Wikipedia. And it came out to 76%.
Sure.
I think that's mostly because there was like one outlier that gave it like a 60. Everything else was like at least an 80 almost. This is a very well regarded, well reviewed, well received album.
It is.
It's one of those things that, people who like punk and people who like noise music and this sort of thing, this is one of those like kind of legendary sort of albums. I think it's a lot of people think very highly of it. I would say. What's your favorite song on this album?
Okay, there is one. Okay, there are a bunch of songs that I like musically. But there's one I like musically and also comes up into the back of my head and has over the last 20 some odd years since I've owned this. And when somebody says something about how much they hate me, I just think, yeah, I'm a bad penny. You're right.
I'm a bad penny.
I'm a bad penny. You can't get rid of me.
I remember liking Ergot.
Ergot. That's the last song? Ergo.
Is it supposed to be Ergo?
Ergo.
I thought maybe it was
all of that.
To,
ergo this.
Okay, I thought maybe it was because the lyrics were not particularly decipherable to me for some reason. Like I didn't catch a lot of the lyrics for some reason, despite like reading about like the lyrical content and understanding that it's very brash and abrasive.
Right.
I didn't actually catch many of the lyrics just listening to it. I thought maybe it was referring to isn't that a type of fungus? Isn't ergot the fungus? Or there's like a fungus that grows on bread and that people credit it like
being the proto
werewolf thing.
Oh, what?
There's something
werewolf thing?
Yeah, like okay, give me a second. I can't remember. I swear to God, it's something. I'm just gonna Google werewolf fungus.
Werewolf fungus.
Werewolf fungus. Yeah, ergot poisoning.
Oh.
Has been proposed to explain werewolf episodes in Europe in the 18th and 19th century.
Is it spelled the same? E-R-G-O-T?
I think it's supposed to be pronounced ergot. Maybe it's I thought maybe it's supposed to be pronounced ergo. I don't know. But yeah, it's a type of fungus that grows on like grains and stuff.
And it turns people into werewolves.
I think it makes people hallucinate.
Oh, okay. Oh, sweet. So where do you get it?
It has been posited that it may be the cause of some hallucinations. I don't know if that's like it's widely proposed as this sort of thing. I don't know if it's factually correct, but that's what I thought it was referring to. Right. Because again, I didn't really pick up on a lot of lyrics necessarily. But I do remember liking the songwriting.
Right. The song itself.
The song itself. I couldn't tell you why I remember liking the song itself, because I only listened to it once, because again, I had to listen to it on Bandcamp, so I didn't listen to it until I got home from work.
Right.
Because normally, if I just pull it up on Spotify and listen to it while I'm at work, but Bandcamp made that a more difficult prospect. But because I didn't have, I'm sure there's a mobile app for Bandcamp, but I don't have that.
So I remember this one time
at
in Bandcamp. Yeah.
What metal are you bestowing upon this album, like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
I mean, it's right on the cusp for me. It's probably a high silver, I think.
High ho silver, you say? Yeah, I would agree. I don't know if I would say it's a high silver for me, but I would call it a silver nonetheless. Is what I would do.
It was very important and just a pivotal album, but it's very niche.
Yeah.
So it's
niche for sure.
Yeah.
So next week we're back to metal. It will be October. Rocktober. And I'm throwing around a couple of ideas. There are two that occurred to me today. Neither of them I'm particularly committed to or like even all that excited about.
Okay.
But I could become more excited by listening to either of the things.
Okay.
And going like, wow, this is really good. I'm glad we decided on that. So perhaps I will throw it to you. I was thinking either we listen to one of the like two earliest Gojira albums from like before From Mars to Sirius. So that is that includes The Link and what's the other one? Their first album, which I actually have the vinyl for.
Do you have the vinyl of that one?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think I just
Which one did I get you?
The first one. You got me the first one.
Did I get you I thought I got you.
No, you got me From Mars to Sirius.
No, I got you the one after From Mars to Sirius. I got you.
Did you? Fuck that. Yeah, you did. You did.
I got you. What the hell's it called?
Magma?
Yeah, Magma. I got you Magma.
Yeah, you did. I have a bunch of Gojira albums now that I think about it.
You do.
The first album is called Terra Incognita.
Terra Incognita, right.
Which I do have on vinyl. So we could like Terra Incognita or The Link. Either one I think I'm fine with. Or some early Opeth.
Ooh. Like pre Blackwater Park.
Yeah, like I mean, there's a lot. there's actually a lot of their discography before Blackwater Park,
I suppose.
But
that was sort of the turning point, though.
Yeah. So there's a number of things that we could listen to there. I think we already listened to Still Life. Did we listen to Still Life?
I believe we did. I believe we listened to Still Life on a day. I remember this because I got locked out of my house, and then I had to wait for my wife to come home from work. And I'm like, let's sit down and listen to Opeth.
Let's just listen to Opeth on this fall day.
And then I listened to it and I'm like, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Let's see here.
I liked it.
Yeah. I'm having trouble navigating Spotify to try and scroll through the fucking list of their albums because Spotify changes their entire fucking format every 3 fucking months. So I don't know how to navigate their fucking app anymore.
Irritating.
I just leave it the same for like a long time. Please. Show all albums. Please. You fuckers. I will scroll down and continue to scroll down. That, God damn it. Also, their discography is massive. Did we listen to My Arms Your Hearse?
Yes.
We did?
Yes, we did.
And did we also listen to Still Life?
I think we did, yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Well, then it would be the next thing would be Morning Rise from 1996, maybe. I don't know. Do you want to just listen to Gojira?
Let's do Gojira. I'm down with Gojira.
So, Terra Incognita?
Sure.
Let's listen to Terra Incognita by Gojira.
It's my niece.
What?
Terra.
Oh.
So it's my niece in disguise.
I thought maybe your niece was named Gojira.
Yes, Gojira. Her name is Godzilla.
Yes. I mean, your sibling just loved that movie. That movie?
Yeah, that one movie.
Not all those movies, right. That movie.
Right, just the Matthew Broderick film.
My favorite movie is the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. I want to meet that person. I want to meet the person whose favorite movie is the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
Yes.
I want to have a conversation with them.
Because that was the best movie ever made.
Yeah, that's true. No, Hey, no, that's not true. The best movie ever made was made by the only Fred Durst.
Right, the
Fanatic.
Fanatic, right.
That's the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
Just like Hot Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water is the best album ever made.
Without a doubt.
Fred Durst just needs to write a play. And what are the other parts of the
ergot? Yeah, there you go.
I got myself an ergot.
I wrote the best stuff ever.
It's Grammy. Oh, it's Grammy, Tony, Oscar, and I mean not in order, but an Emmy, so Grammy. He needs to do something Oscar, on television. Tony. Right. He needs to. Fred Durst needs to produce a television or direct a television series.
Exactly. He needs to come like a daytime soap opera.
I want to live in a universe where Fred Durst gets an EGOT. I want that. All right. Well, if you like this,
we don't know why.
We don't know why, but we're happy to have you. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and follow us on Facebook or X Twitter. It used to be Twitter. It's now X Twitter. Follow us on there as well, I guess. Are they still making that cost money? Is that going to happen now?
About it.
They were talking about that because I mean, if that's the case, then I will delete our account. I assume it won't just automatically charge you.
I think they'll delete it for you. I think if you don't pay for it, it just
I wouldn't put it past fucking Musk to do something really stupid. In any case, this is the part of the podcast where we shit on Elon Musk.
Literally. He's here now,
and we're pooping. We're pooping on him. So go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever it is you're using to listen to us now, whatever podcast service you're listening to us on. Subscribe to our feed there. And thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.